This episode of the Remembrancers Retreat contains spoilers for the Siege of Terra, the Horus Heresy. There's a little bit of the Eisenhorn Ravenor Baquim series also as well. So if you are worried about getting spoiled on some books, do not listen to this episode. You have been warned.
The galaxy is burning. Brother fights brother, and treason splits the Imperium of man. This is the Age of Darkness. Welcome to the Remembrancers Retreat, coming to you from within the depths of the Vengeful Spirit.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Remembrancers Retreat, a Warhammer 30k Horus Heresy podcast. My name is Jesse. I'm here today with Austin.
Hey.
Jared.
Hey.
Sorry, I didn't know your mouth was full. And Michael.
Hey.
I momentarily thought his mic issue was back. I was like, God damn it.
Oh.
Yes.
Anyways.
Dear listeners, we could have started 20 minutes ago, but we got Jared across that line.
That's why
and
we've
he
been
just gave us all a momentary stroke.
Yeah. That's why we haven't posted in a while. We were fixing Jared's microphone, but we're back now.
It's 7:15. I was in a group.
30 minutes later.
Here at 7:43.
That's right. What are we talking about tonight? We're talking about End of the Death, right?
Yes. This
Yes.
is oops, all spoilers. And by that, I mean, this is a free fire zone for every goddamn spoiler in the entire fucking heresy.
Yeah, we will make that.
In the entire universe. We're going to spoil everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Everything.
You don't know that Alfarius and Omegon are the same fucking dude? Guess what? Spoiled. I warned you already.
But yeah, so
Dorn kills Alfarius. I'm trying to think of
just
things I've spoiled.
Just listing spoilers.
Yeah.
Little Horus kills Torgadon.
Somebody
I did that many years ago.
Yeah.
Did anyone actually care about Turgon?
I spoiled it for Will many years ago.
Oh,
In
okay.
2013.
Okay.
And yeah, we were both reading him for the first time, and yeah, it's my first foray into
spoiling.
Yes.
So this is a warning. If you're not worried about spoilers, welcome. If you are, might want to read the stuff before coming in. Tread carefully and don't blame us. You're the one who hit play on this podcast.
Yep. Hope you didn't hit skip intro.
We're not like random people on the internet just posting comments on like, I like this plot point, and like 6 hours after the book drops.
Maybe you're not.
I went dark. I've
running around a Walmart going Snape killed Dumbledore at 12:07.
The energy of a lot of these people.
Yeah, but before we get started, I'd like to thank our Legion Flexomancers on our Patreon group. Another Alfarius is our newest member who signed up, is now a Legion Flexomancer. So thank you very much and welcome aboard.
And presumably he knows that Dorn killed Alfarius because he's
you.
another one. Yeah.
He's trying to cover for him.
Maybe. But our other Legion Flexomancers, Edvin Ullman, Odvin Fronsdal. No, I can't read stuff. Odvin, you got a shout out. Enjoy. Alex Self, Rena the Floof, Andrew N., another Alfarius, Chap Lanisar, Chris Kymick, Chris Mack, Daniel, Real Snice, Variance Hammer, and that is everybody. So if you managed to make it through this first 5 minutes and like our show, go to patreon.com/R30K podcast and yada. All right.
And if you skipped all of that, it's the goddamn spoiler episode. We're spoiling every goddamn thing. We've done it twice. We're going to keep doing it.
This is the botulism episode. We are.
Yeah, I am so rusty. So y'all go ahead and talk. Where do you want to start?
Look,
So
since I had two heavy sighs. Oh, never.
All right.
Your mic fucking up again, Jared?
Michael, you're closest to my picture on this thing, so you go first, and then we'll work our way through.
Okay.
You got 2 minutes. Go.
To start off, what did everyone think?
Okay, so I finished this about 2 hours ago. I am yet to emotionally recover. I want to get a time machine and go into the future and kill Erebus myself. God,
Are we?
I
gonna
knew it was
start
going to
with-
happen at some point. I just didn't think it was going to be that way.
Hmm.
All right.
It's
Well, this is a spoiler episode, Jared. Just come out. Do you
Yeah.
have the mental? Do you want one of us to say it? The new the wound is fresh.
Erebus kills Loken, stabs him in the taint.
Yeah.
Oh,
Really
my
does.
God! Just it's like, you know, that meme of the guy like rubbing his hands together as he's looking for that's Erebus every time he sees a cool character.
Mhm.
He's like, oh, Argotal. Oh, Erda, you're like the grandmom of Space Marines. Cool. Well, let me just murder you. Let me just you know, the fucking Tylos Rubio. It's everybody. It's just fuck that guy, man. Oh my God.
And
Oh,
and
I
not only
want a
does he
40K
murder
novel
Loken-
of, like, you know, the great grandkids of all the people he murdered coming together and deleting him from Warhammer. Just the entire medium.
I'm sorry,
needs to be
Jared,
like a
he's
lost
got a
Primarch.
model in 40K, so he's just never dying,
Does he really?
doesn't he?
I
Erebus?
think so.
No, he definitely does not.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm just thinking of that kick-ass chaplain they've got.
Yeah,
that
yeah. no,
Steven
he's-
was turning into Erebus. But not only does he kill Loken at just fuck, but I feel like Loken came pretty close to convincing Abaddon to just like try and tell Dorn, my bad, bro.
For
Which,
forgiveness.
let's be real here for a minute. That was just going to be one big execution. There ain't no way.
But hear me out.
Forget Dorn. Guilliman, Russ showing up, and
the
we're
lion?
we're reconciled now. No, yeah. That was going to be the next words out of my mouth. Lionel Johnson showing up, and we are singing "Kumbaya" by the fire. He's going to phosphex that fire. Everyone, he'll just glass the whole freaking continent. Like, get out of here. That was not even on the table. That wasn't even in the zip code of the table.
I see everybody
But
just
here's
getting
the thing.
around, shaking hands, and then they see, you know, vengeance.
Who is that in the
Ewok
sky?
party.
Oh no!
It's the Ewok party, everyone singing Kumbaya around the fire.
forget-
And then it blows the fuck up.
But here's the thing.
Mm-mm.
I can see Abby like there's like in that moment you can see Abby like wanting to take that.
Yes,
Like when I read
yes,
it,
definitely.
you absolutely can see Abaddon being like, you know what? Like he doesn't say like, no, absolutely not. Like fuck all you guys. His one sole complaint is, I don't think anybody would actually take my surrender.
Mm.
And Loken comes until he gets a
And
anathema and the taint or however fucking before Erebus murders him mid-sentence. Logan's making a pretty compelling, like to Abaddon, a compelling argument of like, no, bro, just put the shit down. And if he puts shit down,
can you
then
imagine?
it doesn't matter. Like it does not matter
You know,
because that's 90% of every fucking douchebag in the 41st millennium executed.
Mhm.
Just straight
yeah,
up.
yeah.
Like Abaddon gets like Abaddon, a lot of the like core of the Sons of Horus who aren't already murdered, like dead. I guarantee
have-
the Thousand Sons would have tried to play that game.
Yeah. You'd have the Iron Warriors still out and about, and
Mhm.
probably the Death Guard.
And the Night Lords, but
And the Emperor's Children.
here's the thing. They talk
Mhm.
about in the book
point.
like the absolute like slaughter the loyalists wreak on the traitors after Horus is dead and everybody's just running. Because, another spoiler, it seems like all the warp just fucking leaves.
It reminded
Like,
me of like
Nobody
know,
gets
the ring getting destroyed in
Yeah.
Return of the King. It's just like it's done. You know, immediately, which I liked.
Anybody that had been like Super Saiyaned up by warp fuckery and selling their soul, just back to square one, basic dude, right? And we get some shots of that, so that's not like conjecture for those of you that haven't read it. It's expressly stated a couple of places. So if you have any significant fraction of the traitors surrender to the point, and like Dorn takes that surrender, right? Even if G-Man and Russ and the Lion fucking murder him later, then that leaves the loyalists to just continue murdering everyone who's still trying to run, and they just kill that many more of them. So it's not even that like Abaddon is dead and whoever lays down arms with him is dead, but it's just, yeah, and another like 3 times that many guys are shot in the back that otherwise would have escaped.
The law of compounding returns. It would, there's that meme that's like, what the Imperium would be like without Erebus, and it's, like Sisters of Battle singing karaoke and people sitting around a campfire and sharing drinks and cocktails and everybody's having a good time. That's yeah, fuck Erebus.
Dan Abnett has made that canon.
Yes, he literally did. So one thing that has stuck out to me, and I don't even know how I feel about it, but it seemed like Sanguinius, previously the story was Sanguinius weakened Horus enough, poked a hole in his armor or something, did something that gave the Emperor an edge against Horus and let him prevail where he would not have otherwise. That does not seem like the case now. It seems like Sanguinius just went in and
You're talking about
like old
talking
canon.
about the original
When
story.
10, 15, 20 years ago when
now
I
the
started
canon is-
reading this stuff, and the book did not seem like that at all. It seemed like just Sanguinius died for nothing.
I mean, it seems now like it was Russ who managed to chink that armor back in.
I was about to say,
what's the name of the
Wolfsbane.
Geraint.
Yeah,
Wolfsbane.
Which
honestly, I don't remember it ever being Sanguinius who weakened Horus.
Well, that was the original, like the rogue trader fluff of it. Is that Sanguinius goes in,
Yeah.
he fights Horus, Horus kills him, but it leaves Horus injured from that fight. And then even though Horus like beats the Emperor, there's that like the moment where somebody, and I definitely want to talk about who, like gives the Emperor a moment and the Emperor murders him. So like
it was
Sanguinius
Ollie
wasn't supposed
Pierce.
to have died
It was
for
Ollie
nothing.
Pierce.
Old person, goddamn imperial saint. Don't you roll your eyes at me, Michael. We'll get there though, because I don't want to get.
Can't be a saint if he's not a human.
He is a human.
I mean,
Wow.
technically, he's like
He's not a human.
he is a fine pink mist.
Anyway,
there's that.
I don't want to get there yet. I don't want to get there yet.
Yeah.
But I agree that Sanguinius seems to have died for nothing, and I love that. And that's
it
and
checks
I'm not
out.
like a Blood Angels hater,
Yeah.
right?
No,
but-
no.
I
Like,
always
hey,
thought
guess
that was
what,
the
boys?
point.
Yeah. Sometimes good people try to do the right thing in a war, and guess what? They get murdered for fucking nothing. And they wind up crucified on a goddamn wall.
And
Sucks to just doesn't even suck to suck. It just sucks to be a good dude sometimes.
I mean, objectively though, like I mean, yes, the Emperor has many and manifold faults, but like fucking hey, just like listen to the guy sometimes, because like so many things that throughout the heresy, if people had just done what he said and said, no, I need to go, I gotta fight, even though I get all these premonitions about me dying in this fight, I gotta go fight it. My guy, you could have just stayed on Terra and stacked bodies,
Although to be fair,
and it would have helped,
considering-
I'm sure.
and this is another spoiler, that the Vengeful Spirit and Terra and the Warp all just sort of got duct taped together. He might not have been able to, because he could have just walked
Yeah.
through a doorway on the palace and wound up in Horus'
Yes.
throne room.
Sure. But,
Not
was
that
that
he
a
knew
sure
that.
thing? Was he actively running towards that? Maybe destiny would have directed him
Well, that-
there. Sure, whatever. But,
That depends
he-
on what you believe his premonition is, because the answer could be
eh,
yes, it was a sure thing because he'd foreseen it.
maybe.
Maybe.
But, he might not have needed to, like, actively run towards it in the fashion that he did.
Yep.
Heroically, but futile.
Yeah, that was a great fight scene.
Yeah. Oh man, and it's so easy to in fight scenes, and when writers are trying to describe big titanic gods going at it, it's just kind of seems it can be forgettable or just so of such grand scale that you're just like, meh, yeah, this is happening.
Yeah.
But no, that was 10 out of fucking 10. Dan's best work, and I'll hang my hat on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like I know we're hitting like into the Death 3 because obviously that's where everything fucking happens.
Yeah.
But let's not forget, Dan straight up says in the afterword that no, my boys, this was supposed to be one big ass book, and I would still want it to be one big ass book except you literally can't bind a book that thick. Like, I don't know if you like read the afterword yet, Jared, but that's literally a thing he talks about. And he's like, yeah, that's why, like,
No,
if you
I'm not.
read, yeah, so that's what he says when you read the first one and then the second one, and like people were commenting that like it flows weird for a novel and all sorts of stuff. And he's like, yeah, because like we expect books written in English to like the stories go a certain way, regardless of what the story actually is. And so it seems to end in weird places because it all is just one big fucking book. And yeah,
Fellowship
it's
of the
gonna be on
Ring
my
also ends in a weird fucking spot.
That
Yeah.
it does. One thing, go back to Russ fighting Horus, because there's something Horus, kind of says in there. And granted, he's got his dementia rambling, which are, questionably, reliable at best. Looking at you, Mercedes Alaton. But he says, yeah, my sort of, feigned illness of, I've been sitting on the throne for the whole siege and not doing anything, and I collapsed during Beta Garmin. That was all a ruse. I was crazy like a fox. Maybe Russ's efforts weren't that helpful either. I don't know.
I would disagree there only because in like Horace's final moments of life when he's kind of begging for death, I don't think you would have got that without Russ hitting him of this with the spear of like know yourself. Right.
Yeah,
And
but
I
you
think
also
because it
got Loken's amazing oratory powers, which really, like, yes, he's a fine space marine, but he should have been a remembrancer. Or what was Kirill said? Is it an iterator?
yeah,
Yeah,
iterator.
Yeah.
Would
iterator.
have been an iterator.
Yeah, that guy he could just talk the galaxy. He talks the Emperor out of godhood, and he talks Horus out of being himself, or talks Horus into being himself, I guess. The man he could be a fine lawyer, or,
And that was really the wildest part of this whole book is like
yes.
I know how it ends, right? I know how it ends.
Sure.
That's the trick of it. Book 2 has the incredibly wild plot of the Emperor is about to be a chaos god. Spoiler alert. And P.S. We stopped that from happening. And yet they still managed to like. That's not the first thing that jumps into my mind when you ask me about the end and the death.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think there will ever be I know there's been a lot of talk of like, what's the overall quality of the Siege of Terra series, and people talk, oh, I don't like Mortis that much, or everybody has their favorite, or some people didn't like Echoes of Eternity very much. Broad stroking it, I don't think we'll ever see this is a once in a generation type series of this quality, and this is as big of a thing in Warhammer as you could possibly have, and I did not leave disappointed.
Yeah,
honestly,
and
I don't think it could have been better.
Yeah, certainly not given the framework they had, right? Because all the authors talk about like, fuck, we're telling a story that like people know, or we've got a billion different things to tie in. But
Yeah.
I'm not sure you could have picked any other group of authors on Earth, possibly even the same authors in a different order, and had it be as good as it is.
Yeah, 100%. And there are still, there were loose ends. There was stuff that I was expecting to happen that didn't happen. Narek, at one point he shows up on Terra. You never hear from him again. What's he doing? I don't know.
Dead in a crater.
Probably. And listeners, if you have not at this point read the Eisenhorn books, the Ravener books, and the Beckwin books, Pariah and Penitent, you need to get on that.
And
Because
also
they
spoiling
directly
the shit out of them in about 30 seconds.
No, I'm not going to. I'm just going to say they directly relate to the End in the Death, the Siege of Terra series. It's a cyclical thing, and they're all.
Oops,
We
all
said all
spoilers.
spoilers.
Oops.
We're
all
Okay,
spoiling
fine.
everything.
All safeties are off, Jared. Feel free.
Constantin Valdor is the king in yellow. He is in 40K. Yeah, enjoy that in your ear hole, people.
In what looks like an Emperor devout warp planet?
Yeah, he's got a lot going on there. Space Marines who have like psychic familiars who are like part of their armor and shit. Like, this is some crazy stuff going
and
on
all
in
of
that
his
book,
Space
man.
Marines look like little Sanguinius,
Oh, and by the way,
which is super interesting.
you know, psychic
right?
gnolls can like calm down the Black Rage, which I feel like somebody should have figured out in the last 10,000 years to begin with, and like, you know, the Blood Angels could like capitalize on that and like have little Sisters of Silence attached to their units and like,
The Blood
you
Angels
know,
are not smart men, but that's
no, they
probably
are
something
not.
that's sacrilegious to them.
Not to
You know?
mention, you
Yeah.
probably just don't have
Mm.
enough people to spread around to actually.
Eisenhorn
figure
gets
that one
like
out.
a whole unit of them, and he's
Oh,
just he's a rogue inquisitor.
There's a good number of blanks in the universe. Not a ton, but they are out there. That being said, how long do like Astartes survive under the effects of Black Rage? My understanding is that
Not
they tended to, go out into the next fight and die.
Yeah.
Essentially, there's one Blood Angel whose name I cannot remember, who like lived through it.
Yeah.
And like
Who's
period end
the
of
chapter
statement.
master in Dante?
Yeah.
Hasn't he had it like twice? But he's
Probably.
like, you know, Dante.
Yeah, that's Dante.
Okay.
But
It's
yeah,
like
no,
long
it
COVID.
is
You know, he just kind of suffers through it, and then he's
So it's possible that one of them did figure out, I don't actually feel that angry. I went, there's a Sisters of Silence right over there. Do you think that's relevant? And
Yeah,
takes a sniper bolt to the head.
Yeah. I feel a lot less mad about it.
Yeah.
It's probably just jarring enough to weaken a Space Marine or
yeah.
And that was just the
slow
one
them
time the
down
Blood
enough to
Angels,
just
Blood Angels
take 'em
chapter
out.
fought that closely.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
like that whole thing going straight into like Eisenhorn, Valdor has his own little Emperor Demon World ?
Yeah.
When it talks about, so in Into the Death 3 especially, everything merges together. Like there's the Impossible City, there's Terra, there's the Horus's flagship, the Vengeful Spirit, and then there's occasionally other shit that doesn't seem to fit in anywhere
Mm-hmm.
or into any of those three major locations. But I wonder if like that whole place is where Valdor is, right? Like the Impossible City is just where Valdor is once it all kind of disassociates and goes back to being individual places.
May.
Because
Yeah.
But
I
it's
wanna
how
say
does
they
he get there
call it-
from Terra at this point?
Do we see
Who
him
knows?
after
I
the
don't know.
siege?
Yeah, he's back at the Palace.
I
Yeah.
mean, I figured that would be his whole thing, right?
There
Like,
is
all
also a
he-
short story of him leaving Terra after the siege.
Is there?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is a short story. I think it was one of the hang on. Y'all talk amongst yourselves. I'll find it.
I need
But
to.
all he has to
listen
do
this
is go
story.
find Grammaticus,
Yeah.
who will inevitably show up at the Impossible City.
Mhm.
Or honestly grab a ship and just dive straight into the Eye of Terror and see what happens. And, get lucky and or fateful.
It's the best way to do anything. Just fuck it. Just dive straight into the Eye of Terror. What's the worst that'll happen?
I want
Worked okay for the
because
Trader
there's going to be a part 3.
Right?
That there's going to be a part 3 with the Beckwin series. I
Mhm.
want that to just completely tear open the Warhammer universe. I want that to be like a watershed moment of, oh shit, everything changed after this part.
How many of those do you want?
I hope that
boss?
happes.
Like,
Yeah. I
Yes.
don't know.
we
that
just
the 40K
finished Into the
universe
Death
needs
3 2.5 hours
another
ago.
one of those.
I
Well,
wouldn't
so-
be surprised if it was something that ties into the Great Rift and all that, though.
That's fair.
The
Yeah.
short story of Valdor at the end leaving Terra is called Two Metaphysical Blades. It's about Russ's and Valdor's spears and how they were forged.
Yeah,
It's
that's
actually
like-
a really cool one, like most of the short stories are.
Yeah.
If you've been sleeping on the short stories, they're definitely worth a read. Some of my favorite Horus Heresy stuff is in the short stories.
Right? They're amazing. The Last Church, Two Metaphysical
Mhm.
Blades,
Mhm.
like just classic.
That is like 2 or 3 the heresy I haven't read.
Yeah, you need to get on that. Also, can we talk? Like, am I the only one that thinks the Star Child theory has now been confirmed? Just straight up.
I don't think it's been confirmed, but it's definitely had new life breathed into it because it, for a while, seemed like old defunct lore / was it ever lore or anything more than an adventure hook. But it definitely seems like it could be a thing.
You want to elaborate on that a bit more, Austin?
Yeah. So, for those of you that don't know this. Old like rogue trader fluff that was never really revisited, but also never directly contravened, said that 10,000 BC, pick your date. There were shamans that would reincarnate perpetually, hint hint,
Mhm.
and they like foresaw as a group the threat of chaos and all of that. So they all decided to do a ritual where they all died at once and were reincarnated into one person who was the emperor. That that's all the important part of the fluff we're going on with.
Mhm.
In Horus's fight with the emperor, Horus says at least once, and I think a couple of places, something to the effect of like, the emperor's always been many people. And I'm flipping through End of the Death 3 right now. Because there's a point in it where they start fighting using the warp as direction. Like
Mhm.
instead of saying, I parry you with my crazy blade, it goes, I parry you with like, I come out of the 15th dimension and parry you with Chthoniya, which was really fucking sweet.
Yeah.
But they both start saying, hey, Horus attacks as a form of a something that links to a traitor Primarch, and the Emperor comes back at him as a Fenrisian wolf, or they start playing those games with each other. And Horus is like, yeah, the Emperor's always been good at this because he's always been multiple people, but the Emperors existed before the Primarchs, so it's not a reference to him just taking on all the aspects of his different sons. Just saying. Also, and I don't know if this is just me being a Space Wolf fanboy,
It
but
is. Whatever you're about to
is
say.
Fenris the only place directly referenced when they start doing those fights? Because like, oh, he comes like a swooping hawk, but it's always like a Fenrisian wolf or like the ice winds of Fenris.
I know Chthoniya gets mentioned directly, but I'm going to be honest, my eyes glazed over a little bit at the whole Yu-Gi-Oh-ness of it all.
Fair.
And the whole duel took place in the Shadow Realm, so I don't
Exactly.
I don't know where you're
Not
coming.
wrong. Sorry, that leads to a completely different crazy conspiracy theory that I thought up while I was reading that. Because it took until like the third mention of Fenris for me to be like, huh, it's weird that he's referencing Lehman Russ or Fenris like directly in these. I mean, never Lehman Russ, was always Fenrisian something. But like, it's weird that you're always referencing Fenris. Why was Fenris a prison? What were you doing during the Golden Age? Were you on Ice World Prison? A Vikaboo Ice World Prison, Big E? You got to love it, and now it lives in your soul? I don't know. But that's a totally unrelated theory.
Could have just been constant reminders of that time he got by Russ.
Yeah, it could be that. It could be some reference to like Fenrisian magic being not really warp fuckery, and the Emperor being kind of the antithesis of warp fuckery. And again, I don't want to derail the whole goddamn conversation on that.
Yeah.
Hey,
Doubt.
man, think about it, and it is that way in the warp, even when you're using the warp, because it's not self-referential. Anyway, bastards. If anybody
Lehman
listening
Russ.
to this,
Lehman
can
Russ
think
himself
of-
finds the Space Wolf aesthetic ridiculous.
the Space Wolves find the Space Wolf aesthetic ridiculous. It's for the lulls.
You're
That's why
cosplaying
they
as
do
yourselves.
And yet they keep doing it.
It keeps
Yeah,
working.
no, they just lean in.
They just keep leaning in harder.
And yet somehow more worthwhile than what the Imperial Fist managed to accomplish when the Vengeful Spirit gets boarded.
You sure about that?
I am sure. You know how I'm sure? Dear
you
listeners,
keep Diamantis'
there were
name out your mouth.
there were three competing myths as to who actually like bought the Emperor those crucial seconds of life, which he used to murder the fuck out of Horus Lupercal. The first and eternal, thank God, was a humble guardsman called Olpius, stands up in front of Horus and is absolutely fucking obliterated.
A not so humble guardsman
He's just a dude.
He was so humble.
who has lived for billions of years. Yes.
Billions is a strong word. Again,
Is it though?
A few
certainly
millennia.
Not more, certainly not more than one.
A couple dozen, maybe.
It only goes back, I think, to Agincourt.
Yes.
No, remember,
actually,
he's
it
going-
goes back to Babel, so six, right?
He's
But anyway, I don't
Theseus.
want to get distracted. So you've got that,
And the
right?
Argonauts.
And that happened essentially as described, right? It was a dude with a las gun, and he just gets his shit annihilated. The second of the three myths was a squad of Imperial Fist Terminators show up and essentially
Really?
perform the same role, right? They show up, they're annihilated, end of story. And in the third version of the tale,
I'd never heard that.
Yeah, same.
it is custodians. Like it's one or maybe a squad of custodians that come up and are annihilated. The only one of those three that didn't actually happen, the Imperial Fists.
I'd always heard it was a lone Space Marine.
A lone Imperial Fist. Like that is...
I didn't
or
even hear
it-
Space Marine.
it
Imperial
was-
Fist. I figured that's
it
what
was
what's his name was
Imperial
there
Fist, perhaps. Because I think there was a brief moment in time, or like somewhere in the fluff, and like a lone Space Marine, and then a squad of Imperial Fist Terminators, and then when Custodians became like more of a thing in universe, that one was kind of peppered in as the newest of the three. But check references: 0 Imperial Fists present.
To
That's
quote
not
myself,
surprising me. They were all, holding the line downstairs.
yeah, suck it.
The war was over, and they'd lost.
Invite you to consider for a moment, is there any legion who did as much to defend Terra and keep it from not being eaten by demons than
The
the
White
Imperial
Scars,
Fists?
straight up.
No.
I don't even need to entertain your arguments because they have no validity.
Let's get rid of all the walls that Dorn built, all
Yeah,
the shield
yeah.
generators, gun emplacements, and let the White Scars defend Terra and see how long that lasts.
And the solar fleet and the defenses on Pluto and Jupiter, the ring around Mars, the Imperial Palace. Oh, just
But none
everything.
of it mattered.
The fuck it did.
All that did,
I will buy you orthopedic shoes, put them on your feet so you can stand corrected.
all the death that happened at the siege of Terra in the Sol system was purely to suck Terra into the warp, which happened definitively.
That was always
It
going to
doesn't
happen.
It doesn't matter.
Are you making the argument that they were wrong to defend Terra?
I am saying it purely.
Well, it's the only way that
You are the
it's
Lieutenant
okay
Dan.
for the Fenrisians to all have abandoned Terra. So it makes sense that that's his stance.
Actually, that's not quite 100% my stance. My stance is who putting in shit tons and shit tons of effort into defending this, as wise as that seemed in the outset, right? In the end, did not matter, because all that mattered was once enough people died and like White Scars on the planet, they're murdering fucking billions of people, right? Everybody's murdering billions of people. That's just the way of it, because Horus needs those billions of people dead to suck Terra into the warp.
I'm also not buying that that's what did it. The way it was timed, my reading was that Horus saw that Gilman was coming up and was like, yeah, we need to change the rules real quick. And that's when he decided to make everything go fucky.
And also, if we recall the Solar War, the blood in the void and all the death had nothing really to do with Terra being sucked into the void or into the warp. It was the Halley's Comet weirdo ritual thing that Ahriman and the Word Bearers did on the...
I believe it was Word Bearers, yeah.
Yeah. Did on the comet that opened that hole in reality and, let the traitor fleet in, and Terra started getting sucked in there. It had nothing to do with bloodletting. Now, on
It absolutely did.
Lost in the
They set up a
Damned,
whole- Yeah.
we have the systemic, hey, we're feeding our traitor militia to your guns. That was always going to happen.
That's my
And,
whole point.
well, it's a bad point.
My whole point is if you're saying that the Imperial Fist did something that no other legion could do,
They did.
it is now categorically incorrect
No.
No.
because it was always getting sucked into the warp. Always.
I really don't think it was, because it wouldn't have needed to if the Fists hadn't been defending it.
Yeah. Like, you
If the Fists hadn't been defending it, then they would have walked in there.
yeah, that's like, that was their only option because the palace was so well defended.
I mean,
If it had been,
I mean,
imagine if
so-
they had tried to take it without the warp. The warp was their way in because it was so well defended.
So I guess we can all blame that the fact that Terra exists was the issue here.
it really was.
yeah.
Big mistake. They should have just let Perturabo blow up the star.
Dorn should have just blown up Terra as like he did with that moon on Pluto.
Right.
That would have
Should've
shown
blown
him.
up the sun. That would have been baller.
Honestly, the
Just
second,
middle finger out the window as the phalanx
So-
slides away.
But so here, what was the like intended final goal of the siege of Terra, other than to or for Horus and the traitors, was to kill the emperor?
Yeah.
Yeah, but
That was
also
the
there had to
ultimate
be this
primary
symbolic.
condition.
no.
Yeah, it's taking Terra. It's I am killing the emperor. This is my deal. I am now on the home world.
The Chaos Gods seem to have had different objectives, but I'm pretty sure that was
Well, yeah.
the traitor objective.
But it was not Horus's objective.
Was it? Huh?
No, because when Horus sets up, spoiler, 5 thrones,
Yeah.
right? And he has one for Sang, and one for Rogel, and one for Valdor, and one for Big E to be his like minions / bros, right? And it's symbolic, certainly. He certainly murdered the fuck out of Sanguinius instead of forced him to sit on the chair. But Horus was forcing the emperor to sit in that chair, and the Chaos Gods did not approve.
I'm chalking up the chair thing to Horus's dementia, because I mean, really, that
Which he said didn't occur.
any of that actually happening would be as plausible as Abaddon getting it.
Came pretty close to asking for it, though.
Pretty close and happening. Tain't the same thing.
Erebus is just going to stab Horus in the back of the head.
That would have been funny, at least.
It would have been funny.
That would have been.
So-
It would. Shit! Can you imagine if Erebus had been the savior of the Imperium?
Oh man, that I don't know how. Oh man. I would be at this moment going on a very long walk, doing a lot of soul searching.
Little acoustic guitar playing as you're looking across the bay.
Yeah.
But also, because Horus is a
The
master
world's not ready
strategist,
for that, folks.
and if we grant that his fucking coma was all just part of Horus's mind games with everybody, which, but
I
not
think 50-50.
unreasonable, right?
Yeah. I think
But
Russ had a
Horus
hand
is-
in it, but I think Horus, made that crisis into an opportunity.
Yeah. But Horus is famous for his forward planning, right? He's famous for being just already playing the second game of chess, right? That's the whole thing of it. So I kind of refuse to believe that he set sail for Terra and didn't always have the my low probability, first choice mission goal would be for Dad to just bend the knee.
I don't disagree with that, but he also wasn't an idiot.
Yeah.
No, and he says that it's going to be low probability, although then he starts increasing the probability of that as far as the Emperor is concerned. But that's 3 different goals, right? The traitor goal, broad strokes, kill the Emperor, take Terra as a symbolic victory so they can set up their new shiny version of the Imperium. The Chaos Gods got what they wanted out of everything. They just wanted it all to go to shit, even if it didn't go to shit quite how they'd hoped. But Horus has a goal that is distinct from either of those, which is fascinating.
While we're on the subject of cool stuff, the Imperial, which was, by the way, all the things. Jesse, how freaking great was the Sigismund and Corswain, eventual meetup? That made my heart glow. That was just beautiful.
That was so good.
It was a good time.
Oh man, and I kept picturing like as they're relighting the Astronomicon, I kept just picturing like the Care Bears as with our powers combined. That was beautiful.
I was very happy to have the Dark Angels get their bit of the Siege of Terra. I was, before this, I was a little bit, concerned and was like, I'm not going to be interested. But nope, it was pretty dope having
I got to hand it to
such
him.
an integral part of.
Yeah, he actually did a thing, and it was important and consequential. And I was real iffy on it for like 5 books, and then I was like, oh shit, this is actually real.
I think it's also a good model for in people's own stories and games, showing how smaller forces that weren't the big players in the siege can have a large effect.
Yep.
It reminds me of was it 2014 or 2016 when we did our very first big like mega battle that was like the Siege of Terra thing, and we put all those photos up on the internet, and the very first comment on it was the Dark Angels weren't at the Siege of Terra, you fucking casuals. And that has just stuck in my heart forever. And now
have you
I
gone
want to
back
meet
to
that person
and been like, fucking no?
Yeah. I want to like find that person and just sir.
Jared has replied to this comment you made back in 2016.
I'm gonna find it, damn it.
But no, I do remember that, and that was kind of a key moment for me with our community, because I was still fairly new to it. It's like I could see, a small contingent of Dark Angels making it to the siege before the Lions Dutch get there. And you guys were like, yeah, bring it. It's like, sweet.
Yeah, why not? How about 10,000 of them, Jesse?
Yeah.
How about 10,000 fucking Dark Angels?
An army.
Holding the single most crucial objective in the whole goddamn siege.
You
can't light the beacons. Certainly. Help isn't coming.
It's like literally 50-50.
If the Emperor gets got, what's the point?
Yeah.
That's true. But the Emperor can always run to the Phalanx. That was an out, right? Like,
but if they got the Golden Throne,
physical location, I guess I should say. 'Cause you're right. The Emperor dies, it's all over.
But if the Golden Throne gets taken, then those doors it's holding shut open, and Terra gets eaten by demons. So
didn't it already though? Like it kind of did, regardless. Like in retrospect, because I would have agreed with you right up until I read Into the Death Part 3, and then I was like, ooh, we're just in the warp still. But
but not like every single human getting eaten by demons in like 5 seconds in the warp.
I mean, that's not really how the warp works. I mean, it could be how the warp works depending on the moment in time. But
they explicitly say if those doors come open, everyone will be eaten.
Super important.
Immediately.
But speaking of super important things and the doors, what the fuck did Vulcan almost do?
He almost killed everyone on the planet.
How?
The Talisman of 7 Drakes, is that what it's called?
7 Hammers, I believe.
7 Hammers, thank you. Yeah, it's like a doomsday device.
Yeah, but a doomsday device, again, how?
It burns everything.
I don't think we know explicitly what it does. But we know it's...
All right, I was just making sure I didn't miss something, because there's a bunch of shit
I cannot remember where it's from, but they basically say, like, look, if I activate this thing, it's going to burn Terra to the ground. It will burn whatever planet it's on to, rock.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no specifics. So it seemed to be more than an ordinary exterminatus, like not your run-of-the-mill exterminatus.
I mean, yeah,
that's the impression I got. Yeah,
which is fair, right?
It's a Professor Farnsworth, handheld one.
According to Lexiconum, it would be it would activate should the throne fail. It would create a roaring inferno that would consume all of Terra, denying Horus and the powers of chaos the throne world. So,
I forget. Doesn't
it's what Oppenheimer was worried about. This is basically that device.
That's actually,
igniting the atmosphere is a bad thing to do. All right.
Doesn't it's been so many years since I've read like Deathfire and Vulcan Lives. Doesn't like Numeon carry it around, and then when he kills himself, then it goes to somebody else, or Vulcan gets his hands on it. I can't remember, and I know it's
No,
mentioned
I think this
many books
is
ago.
something that had been just kind of always around on Terra just in case, but I could be mistaken.
I think it
Well,
was.
well,
You think it was brought?
I think
only
so,
read
because
the
there's at one
Salamander
point,
stuff once because
Yeah.
yeah, no one's gonna blame you there, but no, there's one point where like he gets hit by like a flamer, Numeon does, and he's just like holding this talisman, and everyone thinks like, oh shit, Numeon's dead, he's burned up, and then he's just scorched, but he's not dead, and he's like, oh yeah, this thing protected me, yay.
I don't know if that's the same thing though.
It might not be it. I'm not going to read that book again. Life is finite.
Apparently,
You
Vulcan had built this the Oppenheimer thing. Sorry, the talisman after the Battle of Nocturne.
all right.
It served as compass that guided Vulcan and his 3 Drac squad through the webway to Terra.
Are you talking about when that little Death Guard army comes and lands on Nocturne and then gets eaten by dinosaurs
Yes.
or drakes?
Yes.
Yes.
Goofiest part in possibly any 30K.
Battle
I
of
direct your
Nocturne
attention to
was-
the damnation of Pythos.
It's
Quite a few people get eaten by dinosaurs. in
My
this
attention is
70
averted
volume
from that book.
series.
No, this was from the book Deathfire, apparently.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Can we segue into another doomsday device that may or may not exist?
yeah, why not?
Sure.
The frickin'
I
foes
think it's close to what I want to talk about too.
biophage.
Go
Oh my
for it.
god.
Go for it, Michael.
No, you go for it. I'm more interested
nope.
in the people around it than the actual MacGuffin.
Oh no, I want all the people around it.
Oh.
It was really my segue to start talking about. Is it
All the
bad to
Inquisition
say-
shit?
Yeah, well,
Oh no, it's
my favorite
Inquisition
enemy of the
shit.
Emperor.
Okay, because the biggest thing in this book for me was Zarachek Xanthus, who gets killed by Foe, and then Foe takes over his identity.
30 seconds on who Foe is for the people that this is being spoiled for.
Foe was the biochemist who was working on the Astartes plague. Effectively.
The maddest of mad scientists.
Yeah, he's a war criminal. He ran the old Pan Pacific Empire, right? Pan Pacific.
I believe it was Pan Pacific.
Yeah, he was one of the like major opponents to unification.
Yes.
Was held in an infinitely secure fortress that he was straight up taken from during the siege because it was all going to shit, and he is like a biologic MacGuffin producer. Continue, Mike.
So he survives the siege as Xanthus, which is very interesting to me because we know how a heretic named Xanthus dies in the 32nd century, millennium, not century, millennium. He's burned as a heretic by the Inquisition after founding the movement within the Inquisition, the Xanthites, people who want to use the warp for the betterment of humanity, effectively. Which I was into because the previous depictions of Xanthus, frankly, he seemed way too straight-laced for that shit. But Foe is a lot more interesting because Foe's big problem is he didn't like the Emperor. Humanity, he's fine with. He's not so sure about the whole chaos of it all. He likes humanity, hates the Emperor. So with the Emperor on his throne and humanity ascendant, I think he might have been an early member of the Inquisition and like loyal, if heretical.
Yeah, it is kind of the perfect place for a guy like that to wind up, right?
Yeah.
You have a rosette, nobody, you get no back talk, do whatever the fuck you want, infinite resources.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to toe the line, really not even that closely.
Once you got a little bit of a reputation, you just stop telling people when you're going over the line.
Yeah, just nobody cares until
And then-
eventually you get burned at the stake because a lot of people care all at once. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. I mean, he should have hit his tracks better. And by this point, he's got dozens of students to carry on his work.
But let's be real. Did they actually burn the real foe?
There's that too. We have to ask: Did they kill the right foe when they burned him? Slash, was it someone with the same name? Because we have that crop up in this book too.
Oh, yes.
Because we have 2 Morianas now, which is the other thing that blew my mind.
Go on.
Previous to this, I had assumed that the Moriana we hear about is the same person.
And who are they? Again, like 30 seconds.
Yeah. So the first 2 places I encountered the name were in the Battlefleet Gothic rulebook, where they're talking about Abaddon kicking off the 12th Black Crusade. And he goes to see a seer, Morgana the Seer, who gives the Black Legion visions and shit.
Oh, yeah, I remember her.
The other one is in one of the opening fluff bits in the Inquisitor rulebook, where you have 4 people, presumably founders of the Inquisition, who are talking about the Emperor's new state and what to do about it. She gets name dropped as essentially putting the Emperor's well-being ahead of humanity, under the assumption that humanity ain't shit without the Emperor. I'd always assumed that she went from that to full-on chaos and being corrupted and all that. But now they could be completely separate people. Because we have 2 Morianas, one who is the weird fusion of Acte, who was Cyrene, who merges with Cat of the Argonauts.
That was so damn cool.
And
Man, that was awesome.
And the other, who was an agent of the Sigillite.
Who knows, man? A lot of stuff going on in the universe.
At this point, I don't think that there's more to go on with those 2, but it throws a lot of what I had assumed was established lore of the Inquisition a little bit out the window. Because if those 2 people aren't the same person, alternately they could be. At this point, we just don't know. It's a whole lot of uncertainty, which we love because it's the Inquisition. And if you can't have crazy conspiracy theories about the Inquisition, what's the point?
And I will say that's something I loved about this whole, End in the Death especially, just all of it. This, in my head, I was a little bummed going into End in the Death because, when I started playing 40K, it was just, 2 sentences in the Rogue Trader book, right? Or a throwaway paragraph somewhere else talking about the siege of Terra, right? And so I was like, man, we're just going to know all the answers now. And End in the Death especially was like, yeah, so here's the thing. Here's one answer and 5 mind fucks. You're welcome.
Yep. And speaking of mindfucks, Lillian Chase. Michael, you look less than impressed, but my mind was blown. I figured she was going to be somewhat of consequence. But to give reference for those of you who have not read the Eisenhorn Ravener, Dan Abnett literary universe within Warhammer, Lillian Chase, there is an organization that's sort of the twin of the Inquisition called the Cognite. They're sort of the counterpart for Chaos. They have highly trained operatives. They operate covertly. They're agents. They're specialized. They're very talented. They do 40K terrorist stuff essentially. And they were founded by Lillian Chase. So that little archivist goes on to do great things.
Yes.
Really bad things, but yeah. Which I thought was crazy.
Well, let's calm down on that a little bit.
No.
Because I don't think she goes on to do terrible. Because I think it's more of a something doesn't get told to people far enough down the chain. Because all that whole organization the Cognite is working for, the King in Yellow, who is Constantine Valdor.
Maybe.
So the question becomes, like, does she go traitor and is duped, or and this is like, I feel like it's a coin flip as to which of these is true given what we know, or does she stay loyal and found the cognate at some weird directive, and they go far enough down the chain and say, hey, yeah, this is only something the inner circle knows. Everybody else, Inquisition style, gets told just enough to do their job. And
So
yeah, maybe 10,000 years down the line, the high commander dies without leaving the note, and they think they're working for chaos. Maybe the whole thing gets set up that way.
maybe I just from the tiny glimpse we get of it in Penitent,
Or does Valdor flip?
I find it very plausible that some wires get crossed, somewhere in the 10,000 years between those books and the Horus Heresy. There's Pandemonium, which is the third book in that series, has a lot of stuff to answer for, and I cannot wait for it. And I'm firmly convinced they were waiting to. I remember reading Pariah like 10, 12 years ago and was like, oh wow, this seems really interesting. I can't wait for it to get a sequel. And it seems like they've deliberately held off publishing it. I think this has been in Dan's back pocket for a long time.
If that's true, I will have to stop hating Guardians of the Galaxy quite so much. I love those movies, but Dan had a hand in them. And every time a new one would come out, I would be like, God damn it, Dan, just keep writing the Beckwin arc. Like, I've enjoyed all those movies. I've enjoyed every single one of them to various extents, but I've enjoyed all of them. But in the back of my mind, it was always just like, God damn it, Dan. So this would make me happy if that was indeed his master plan of like, look, this whole Siege of Terra thing's going to go down, and I don't want to spoil any of it.
I firmly believe that is the case. He's just been constrained by time, because clearly the man can put out content. My God. I want to know what the word count is if you combined all three parts of End in the Death.
It's
I can do math.
Sure.
Gotta be 300,000.
Too high.
It's got okay.
Too high.
The average length, like full length novel, is 100,000, and each of these was longer than that. It's got to be 450, I would say, just ballparking. And he seems to have written it in what?
I think he said like two. Like he wrote this in the same length it took him to write like two normal books. I want to say, I'd have to go back.
I mean, real talk, like, Stephen King, a lot of his most prolific periods, he was on so much cocaine, like he just had a perpetual nosebleed.
Yeah.
Dan, coming from a place of love, maybe just buddy. I mean, I love what you're doing.
The siege is over. Lay off the coke.
Yes, just
so.
Sir, if you listen to this, this is your intervention.
In his hypothetical defense, my understanding is a lot of the work that goes into noveling is, planning rather than words on a page.
So I feel like I am in a unique position to give a counter argument. It's so much fucking work. It's so much work. Sure. It makes you want to die. It's so much work. All of it. The word count, the planning, no part of it is easy. None.
Not saying easy, just, if he did the planning for one book and then, it took him as much time as for two books, that could be why it didn't take longer. It's because he was only doing the planning for the equivalent of one really big book.
Totally off basis of anything we've been talking about. Sure. Some of the diction he drops in End in the Death, all three parts of it, it's to the point where like he's like the sci-fi Shakespeare, and he's just coming up with words and gives them meaning, and they work because they work.
Mm-hmm. The man invented Prometheum.
Like, I don't know of a single book I've read in the entirety of my life that has exoplanar used as much. But it's like, oh yeah, okay, I understand what this is saying. I think I bring like H.P. Lovecraft and transport him into 2024 and he'd be reading this stuff and he'd be like, oh man, this is all good material. I could really use these words. And,
and not use some other words.
Yeah, maybe not use some other words
Well,
there,
he
buddy.
probably would still use the other ones.
Yeah,
That's
he
not
would.
bad. However, I've got a fun fact for you. Talking about how fucking like monstrous a book this is. The average page count on a hardcover version of the Bible is 1,504 pages. The page count of Ed and the Death, 1,885.
There you go.
My man is
Just-
prolific.
Yes.
Damn.
And that took him a while to write the Bible.
Yeah. That was multiple folks writing it down. I mean,
Yeah.
That was the original Siege of Terra.
Lord of the Rings.
oh, how long did that take Tolkien? Was it
Oh,
15
Lord of the
years or
Rings.
something?
Well, to be fair, it was his side gig.
Yeah.
There was a war on, and then another war
And then
on.
another one.
But
He
Lord
had
of the Rings
that
clocks in
gig at
at-
Oxford he was doing.
Right.
at 1,178 pages. So Dan, again, his kind of Lord of the Ring equivalent, technically a longer book. And I don't care what you nerds say, fucking every fight, because some people were like, "Oh, Into the Death 3, the fight's really like repetitive. It keeps going on." And unfuck yourselves.
Yeah.
There is
just work
so
on yourself
much
as a person.
shit going on in each of these, like, because the fights. So in End of the Death Volume 2, right, Sanguinius and Horus, right, that's the whole build up is Sanguinius and Horus minus the Emperor maybe becoming a chaos god. But that kind of follows your classic bolter porn fight, right? It's one long drawn out affair, and then Sang winds up just like his neck gets stomped on, and that's the end of that. He dies in the least glorious way imaginable. And Volume 3 is kind of a series of rounds, right? There's like the round where they're fighting each other essentially normally. There's the round where they're fighting each other through the warp. There's the round where they're fighting each other with the warp. There's the round where they literally have a card game. But
Speaking of, you just activated my goddamn trap card.
all of it is fascinating. As like someone who, again, like, God, can I say grew up with the lore? I started when I was like 11.
I think you can. I think you,
Right?
if anyone can, it's you.
Me and Jason. But like every weird thing that you could maybe like skip the paragraph and not miss out on plot, just all sorts of things popping into your head from all the little like mind nuggets that have been stuck in my brain for an unreasonable amount of years.
And, objectively, like, as somebody who does a lot of studying on how to write fight scenes, every bit of it is coherent. It all made sense. To be frank, I consumed this through Audible. I listened to it. Most of the time it's, where I'm driving from point A to point B and at work, I will put it on and I will listen to it. And so, my brain is mostly occupied with work. I still followed all of it. And that's really saying something.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, generally when a book like this comes out, I can, because I read the physical copy, and I generally just stop thinking about literally anything. I sit there for 3-4 hours at a time and knock it out in 1 or 2 sittings, right? I have a toddler now, so that didn't fucking happen.
I was about to say, when was Austin doing this?
A little bit at 4 in the fucking morning, Jared. But again, in like 15-minute chunks 5 times a day, like reading for an hour at 4 in the morning, and it all like flowed well. Like some books I read like that, and I don't have any idea what the fuck's going on at any given moment. Like it just doesn't make any sense.
This is just while you're talking about that popped into my mind. People give John French a lot of crap for Mortis and Solar War. French did a fantastic job with Solar War and Mortis, and here's why. And then people don't. I think it kind of went over a lot of people's heads with those 2 books. He does a really wonderful job of setting up expectations in the reader that you don't necessarily think about, because he draws on storytelling techniques and tropes that are present in a lot of other genres and a lot of other, literary universes and uh, fictional universes that don't show up in Warhammer books a lot. And so when they're included, they feel kind of jarring, but then all of a sudden he draws it right back. So, Mercedes Alaton during Solar War, we see her little arc of, I'm having these visions and I have to get to Rogel Dorn. I have to tell him about what's going on. And as a listener, you automatically just assume, oh yeah, this must be something incredibly important, because, everybody knows, visions and these prophetic things, these have to be important, and they have to be something that's good, because that's so many other examples of that in pop culture. But then at the end, we remind you, oh, by the way, motherfucker, you're in the grim darkness. This is Warhammer, and yeah, there's a demon in your brain, and your existence is messing things up for everybody. Why don't you fling yourself into a reactor? And he does the same thing
True
with
story
Mortis.
for those of you keeping track of the spoilers.
Yeah, that's how Solar War ends.
Yeah.
She flings herself into the reactor of the
basically how that
Phalanx,
goes
and
down.
that is how the plan was for Dorn and the Phalanx to get killed day one, and it was going to happen, despite Dorn beating
plan.
Samus. And
sure,
she has the good
honestly,
graces
who
to.
hasn't?
Yeah, that's true. She has the good grace to die to save everyone, which is nice of her. And then in Mortis, we see again the trope of a ragtag group of survivors who are, jaded and disabused, and they have to come together and fight the materially superior evil, with the Legio Invigliata. And you think, oh yeah, that's great. They're gonna come together and kick ass and do this thing, and then no, it's not enough. They all die. It's just beautiful. It drives home the overall themes of Warhammer, the futility, the horrible suffering, that there are no heroes in the way we understand them in this universe. It drives that home so forcefully and so beautifully. So get off his dick. He's doing a good job.
Can we, because we forgot one thing in our press of spoilers when we were talking about how Loken got fucking got.
Yeah.
Oh, that just popped in my brain too. Oh,
there is the saddest point of that whole thing, because as is expressed multiple times throughout everything in 40K, demons come into existence through specific acts, a specific or act singular, and ever since the Whisperheads, we've had Samus being the man beside you, and turns out that he was created from a very specific act, which is the absolute fucking worst thing in the world, the murder of Garviel Loken. Because that's all it is at that point. So yeah, Loken birthed Samus.
and what's so perfect is that in part 2, Dan, in a kind of a roundabout sort of ass backwards way, alluded to some sort of a connection being there, because they have that scene where Samus talks to Loken and is like holding his face up against the bulkhead, looking out over the battle over Terra, and gives him all this knowledge, and Loken has all this crazy revelations and all, but his brain's fine. He doesn't go crazy. Like, it hints at some sort of connection between the two in retrospect, and that's something that never even touched my brain as a suspicion or a possibility. But it after part 3, I'm like, well, dang, okay, that makes sense now. Damn it.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Fucking Erebus, man.
Fucking Erebus. Which I think could be just as the Silmarillion could have been titled Feanor No.
Yeah.
The Siege of Terra
no.
could just be fucking Erebus.
No, the Horus Heresy is
Yeah,
the main credit.
Horus Heresy.
He set this all up.
The whole heresy, all 70 fucking books of it, could have all been titled fucking Erebus.
Fucking Erebus.
Well, it's been about an hour and 20. I'd say it's probably a good time to wrap this up for tonight.
I was about to say,
Sure.
if we pour one out for the homie.
Mhm.
Indeed.
Oh, but one last thing. I did super appreciate, and I guess we might have to have an Oops All Spoilers Part 2, the spoilinger.
I
Sure.
was going to suggest that because, yes.
Yeah.
But Loken is there when Horus kills the Emperor, straight up, because it's a metaphysical fight, and both of them get killed a couple of times, and the Emperor gets killed quite a bunch. And that final death stroke, Loken is there for. When we say Erebus murders him, he murders him as like Abaddon and Loken are talking over the body of Horus, because Abaddon like runs in after the fight is over and sees them all there. But that was just beautiful callback to that very first book, because I remember reading I was there the day Horus slew the Emperor, like
Yeah,
reading that
yeah.
first Horus Heresy book, having no idea what the fuck this whole series was going to be about. Not knowing that it was going to be the first of like a 3-book arc or anything like that. And so like when I read that, I was like, oh fuck, we're just starting right with the goddamn Siege of Terra. This is gonna kick ass. Spoiler, didn't go down like that.
Oh, my sweet summer child.
Right? But like he was there, and I don't know if I want to credit any one man, because Dan says himself in the afterword for the Death 3 that like they had no fucking idea like that it was going to be as popular as it was, that they get the like leash from GW to write as much as they were allowed to write. So I can't imagine he like wrote that sentence with this in mind. I say, tapping my copy of End of the Death 3 like anybody can fucking see me do it.
I think he.
But that like it was beautiful because fuck.
I think he did.
I mean, he
solely
might have had
because
that
he's
hope.
that damn talented.
He might have had that hope, right? That
Yes,
like, man, if
yes,
they give
that's
me
what I
enough
think.
books,
Is he got the
I'll tie this
opportunity to
back
do it, and he set himself up for that.
It also could
but
have
it was
been
beautiful, but
that
also-
he also could have been that he had that plot point in mind. He just figured he'd do it, at book 5 when they got to
Yeah,
Siege of
right.
Terra.
When they got told- yeah, when they got told
120
wrap this
or
up.
whatever we're up to.
Um,
Because
yeah, but
there's the question for any character who's introduced in Horus Heresy is, if they aren't in 40k, what happened to them?
100%.
And so
Yep.
something was going to happen to Loken. The question was just what? And he's too much of an author and fan favorite for it just to be, he ate a bolter shell.
or that he, survived and vanished into the warp to be picked up.
I thought he was going to
picked
be.
up 5 years later in some like scouring book or something like that. Like
Hmm.
he is definitively as dead as can fucking be.
Yeah, there's no coming back from that. I thought he was going to be one of the first Grey Knights, like one
That's
of the.
what I thought too.
Yeah, because he's got the the Force sword that he's not a psyker, but he activates. They were setting that up so well, and then nope.
Bamboozled.
Ugh.
But the interesting thing for me now is in that first thing, like he says, "Oh, I was there the day Horus slew the Emperor," and it's like, and he tells that joke even when it's when the events kind of overtake it and it's no longer funny. And again, to Jared's point that everybody kind of thought he'd be the first Grey Knight, I thought that was a reference to him surviving the heresy.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm only wondering, who the fuck were you telling that joke to, Garvey? Like, shit just... What? You telling that joke to, like, Dorn?
Dorn loves
Unless it
jokes.
was
That's
Samus telling
the
that
ideal
joke.
audience.
Oh, balls. Now you just make me sad. And on that terrible disappointment.
Yeah.
And on that terrible disappointment, damn,
Yeah.
We'll call
Sorry,
it a night
Jesse will fix it in
and
post.
come back to part 2.
I was trying to let Jesse cut it out.
Well, once again, thanks for listening to the Remembrancers Retreat. If you enjoy our program, be sure to follow us on Facebook or Instagram at R30K Podcast. You can like us, subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. If you enjoy our program, and like to support us, go to patreon.com/RR30K podcast. And we'll see you next time. My name's Jesse. This has been the Remembrancers Retreat. Keep those dice rolling, and bye for now. GoblinsHut.com is the distributor for the Dirty Down paint line and other hobby products in North America. Dirty Down liquid effects and aging sprays have been used by prop masters in TV and film for over 30 years to create incredible realistic-looking effects in a fast, reliable way. They can be spotted in some of your favorite media such as Star Wars, Game of Thrones, and Alien, just to name a few. That precision has now been brought to the miniature realm and is taking the hobby by storm. In the Dirty Down line, you'll find rust, moss, and verdigris effects unlike anything else on the market. With a vigorous shake and a mix of a bottle, a single wash creates the combined effects of multiple other paints and even provides a subtle texture. Dirty Down's entire line is also water soluble, so you can achieve a wide variety of effects, entirely reworking, removing, or layering to your heart's content to achieve the perfect weathered look. With this capability, the line is perfect for speed painting while also having the depth for use for competition pieces. If you'd like to buy Dirty Down at a shop near you, ask your friendly local game store to go to goblinshut.com for information on stocking it. You can also purchase it direct as well. Also, all listeners of the Remembrancers Retreat can get a 5% discount on your online order with the promo code RR30K. And patrons of the Remembrancers Retreat get 15% off their orders. Once again, that's goblinshut.com, home of the Dirty Down liquid effects.